next one is, before I get you into the breakout rooms to have those conversations and networking, this is the last panel. I promise this is going to be short, quick, and easy for you to really understand. There's a sense of urgency for making our enterprise supplier channels more inclusive. It's a necessity right now. So with us, we have Kristen Miller, who's going to moderate a panel just to kind of have you expand your mind as an entrepreneur, as well as leaders, how to think about unlocking that procurement engines. So with that, I want to invite Kristen, welcome, and moderate a panel. I will have a timer on the top because these conversations are so inspiring, but everybody wants to network. So if you can do a pretty interesting one, that would be great.
Thank you, Chaitra, and sorry I beat you to the punch on hopping on stage. I was just so excited. This is such a wonderful topic, and I absolutely love the Women in Cloud tagline, "She soars," because that's what we all aspire to do. But unfortunately, for so many of us female tech entrepreneurs, our two Achilles heels and what keeps us rooted firmly on the ground are raising capital and closing enterprise contracts. So I'm really excited to introduce all of you today to three incredible women who are going to join me in this conversation. We have the perspective from an entrepreneur, as well as the perspective from the corporate executive, as well as the public sector perspective. So with that, I would love to bring Katina, Wendy, and Amy up to the stage and give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. And actually, we'll start with Wendy today. So Wendy, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about what economic access means to you, and just kind of for fun at the end of all of that, if you can share your 2020 word with us, that would be wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Kristen. Even if it is virtual, we can't feel each other, but we can see each other. Like I said, I think we spoke about this before, but I'm the Chief Diversity Officer for the City of New York. My role is to do everything from investments to contracts to regulations and policy. A lot of the work that I do is really looking at women and minority-owned enterprises, and specifically women and people of color, and come up with solutions on how to address systemic racism. My word for 2020, is it 2021 or 2020?
2020, let's start with 2020.
2020, my 2020 word was going back to basics. So I don't know if that is.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, Wendy. And we'll hear more from all of our panelists as we continue the conversation. Katina, let's go to you next. What does economic access mean to you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and also your 2020 word.
Absolutely. I'm Katina Kenyon. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm the co-founder of Aplaudo Studios. We are a tech company that helps large enterprises reimagine their digital transformation. We help them modernize their apps. We help them on their cloud journeys. And I am also a member of the Women in Cloud cohort number 4. So I am a recent graduate and thrilled to have attended the accelerator, and would love to speak to anyone in the breakout sessions later if you have questions about applying for the accelerator. I'm definitely a big fan of the Women in Cloud organization. So, economic access, to me, it really starts at the human side. So the human connections are so critical for us as female founders and as entrepreneurs. We don't run in the same circles as a lot of the investors do. And so that human connection may not come naturally to some of us. And not only do we not run in the same circles, we may not have the same education background as some of the tech investors do. And so I think it's really important that we are aware that this access is not just what are the dollar signs or the capital that these groups can flow into our businesses, but can they help us make really meaningful human connections. And then, I mentioned education. There's not only just kind of our formal educations, for me, it's been 20 years, 20 plus years since I've had any formal education. And so we're not calling on our alumni systems, in the same ways. And so I encourage us to point founders and entrepreneurs to accelerators like the Women in Cloud Accelerator or incubators that can help them accelerate their business, take their ideas from ideation all the way into being able to launch them, whether they're launching a tech company or a B2C direct consumer sale. The education piece, I think, is one, especially now in our more virtual world, that we can have, an even greater touch into. And then last is the economic piece, right? Those of us who may have pitched our business to a VC or to a group of investors and realized we weren't the right fit, we should be thinking of how do we introduce that group into our other peer women founders. It may not be a great fit for me, but it could be a great fit for someone else. So I think it's really shouldering, and I liked how some of our speakers earlier were talking about the rising tides. I think if we can shoulder that and bring one another along, I think that's kind of how I look at what in totality, that kind of economic access.
That's fabulous. Thank you. Amy, if you could introduce yourself and share your perspective on economic access. And actually, I realized, Katina, we didn't get your 2020 word, so we'll come back to that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Protexter. I am a Senior Vice President of Marketing for Insight, and we are a global Fortune 500 technology solution company. For me, I've always worked in large organizations. They've always been very male dominated. From my first job at the Department of Transportation in South Dakota, where literally I was one of 2 professional women in a department of 1,200 people. It's always been, I think for me, economic access really just means a fair shake, right? Like getting an opportunity, no matter your age, no matter your gender, being seen for what you can actually do and what you can actually bring forward. And I think for women today, that's what we want. We want a fair shake. We want access based on our merits, because we have so many of those. My 2020 word is something that we all had to dig really deep to find this year, and probably found stores of it we never knew we had, and that's resilience.
Great one. And I love the term fair shake that you used. I think we'll definitely come back to that throughout this conversation. So Katina, we're hopping to you next anyways to talk a little bit more about your perspective on what you feel corporations should do to help unlock some of this economic access. So if you want to jump into that and also share your 2020 word along the way, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, 2020 was surreal, and it's surreal, and it's spilling over into 2021. But I think that I've had a career calling on large enterprises, and so I was able to really navigate and understand how to navigate the call into a large enterprise. And so, but had I not had that, I think what I see as success factors for female founders calling into enterprises is they are able to articulate and narrate what their value proposition is in a clear and concise way. And that can grab the attention of procurement and also business decision makers. So that quick narrative, right? We all know that even ourselves as entrepreneurs, that our minutes are so few and far between that we have to respect the executives that we're calling on. So quick narratives. Where I see also success in calling into enterprises is when there's a tenacity that can be unmatched, right? You have to be tenacious and willing to understand a business's internal politics. You have to understand how to strategically orient yourself and how you ensure that you have champions along kind of your sales cycle and your sales journey. Tenacious because large enterprises move like cruise ships. And then you have these young partners that are like jet skis that are trying to do donuts in the bay, where the cruise ship is just trying to make sure they don't they don't misdirect or misfire their direction. So tenacity, willingness to hang in there for long sales cycles, and also an investment in your own time and understanding how to strategically navigate, kind of the internal politics of bigger companies. I think that the advice that I would have too for women that are trying to tackle the enterprise space is, go be in the enterprise, go learn what it's like, wear Amy's hat. And if you haven't worn Amy's hat, maybe you go do that. Maybe you go do a big stint in an executive role or in a corporation, so you can see, from the inside how things operate. If that's not in your cards, or maybe you've already done that, then you have the chance to bring other women along with you to that journey.
I really like, Katina, how you focused on the role that us as entrepreneurs play in acquiring these contracts, right? It's not just about having the door opened for us. We have to be prepared when that door is open to walk in and know how to get the deal done. And so I think what's so great about Women in Cloud is it's really that dual mission of creating access, but then providing a platform for preparing us as entrepreneurs to be able to capitalize on that access. So now let's go to Amy. Amy, I would love to get your perspective on the role that corporate executives play in unlocking this economic access.
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, as a company, you have to sort of have that in your DNA, right? Like, you have to be a company that understands the power of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, for me at Insight, we have some really pretty simple but powerful values of hunger, heart, and harmony. And harmony, really, it speaks to the fact that it takes very, very different types of people, different perspectives, different experiences, like diversity in all its forms, age, experience, gender, race, whatever, to actually create the complex solutions that we do for our clients. And so if you start with that as an internal sort of part of your DNA, it makes it a lot easier to sort of extend it into, out into the world. So, when I think about, Insight's journey, we started as a company, 35 years ago, and, have kind of always tried to build that bridge to being a good company. Part of that was joining the UN Compact a few years ago and really starting to set out purposeful goals for ourselves in areas of economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, all of those different things. And so, every year we kind of reevaluate where we are. And I'm happy to say that, I actually went to our procurement department that has a specialty focus on diverse suppliers. And in 2020, we actually partnered or used 135 technology companies in the channel that were women-owned businesses. And it was about an $80 million spend of investment in companies that do that. So I think, if you're an enterprise, you should be advocating with leadership to establish goals, try to continually increase the access that other organizations have to partner with you. And I think, you have to look in the mirror and you have to decide, are we going to be a company that embraces the proven power of diversity, equity, and inclusion in getting better results overall, which, study after study has shown.
That's so amazing. And thank you, Amy, for your leadership in this space. The numbers that you shared are fabulous. So we really appreciate your support. Wendy, would love to get your perspective on the public sector and how the policies that you work on promote inclusion, and also maybe some of the data points that you've seen that shows that this really works, that you can really move the needle with policy.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that you'll find is that when you meet chief diversity officers, whether they're in a corporation or they're inside of municipality, inside of government, there are various roles that that person plays in really addressing systemic racism, looking at gender gaps, And one of the numbers that we constantly hear is that we are paid disproportionately from everyone else. That women are always at the helm and at the head of the table, but have to sit on the side. And one of the things that we are doing in our office to really make sure that that is not an issue is that we're looking at how do we start making the wealth gap get closer, meaning as we've been spending with women and minority-owned businesses, one of the things we've developed in our office is a market analysis tool. And when we do a market analysis, we check for gender discrimination, we check for race discrimination, and more importantly, if the scope of work that our office is putting out doesn't meet those guidelines, the scope of work doesn't go out. So we're putting teeth behind that. And what we've been able to see is when I first came into office, we were about 11%. And now I'm happy to say that 50% of our budget is going to women and minority-owned businesses.
Fabulous.
We know this works. It takes time. I've been here now 7 years working with the controller on this. We have had to change multiple policies and done a restructuring of a lot of internal, old, archaic laws that we were following that were kind of bigger than most employees because they really have been embedded in the office. But where you normally see those kind of structural issues, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced it. You go and you apply, you want to do cloud services for the Department of X, Y, and Z, whoever the department is. And then they say one of the criteria says something like, you have to have like-size experience. So like-size experience, everyone's like, yes, because they're so annoying because like-size experience is really a biased way of saying you have to have done business with us. And if you are a woman and you've never done business with us, which is likely because that's how systemic systems work, then you are taken out. So we have eliminated those kind of words in the scope of work. As we've done that, we have seen a major increase. We've been able to triple pretty much every year throughout the last 7.
That's so amazing. And I think one of the things I love about these 3 women is that this is a living example of collective power, right? We have, Katina representing the entrepreneur, Amy representing the corporation, Wendy representing the public sector. And so this is really about how the 3 of us can work together to make a difference and move the needle on these statistics and, of course, make differences in people's lives. So we just have a few minutes left, and I would love to open it up to the 3 of you to a few things, because I know we moved through this time more quickly than we had planned. So a couple questions to ponder. One is, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that would help them harness the benefits of collective power, if you want to address that? If there's any burning points that maybe I missed in my questions that you want to make sure you get out, maybe use a minute for that. And then if you want to close with your word for 2021, that will bring us full circle. So Katina, would you like to jump in first on this one?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to take my minute, and I'm watching my timer. I'm going to take my minute on why corporations should knock down barriers and talk to us as female entrepreneurs. One, the businesses that we run, I mean, everyone we've heard today have given us some really great statistics. What we haven't talked about is many of us are on a jet ski. We can move really quickly around your large enterprise. So we can be on that jet ski and spin around. We have been exposed to a lot of different projects ourselves. And so we can bring in some dynamics and some best practices that you and your team may just not have had exposure to. And we have that unhindered point of view. We are not burdened by some of your internal dynamics, right? And so that helps us be really great partners for you. So you should choose us, not because of all of the other statistics, but because we can be really, really agile partners for you.
Amy, yes, your word, hopeful. I love that. Amy, let's go over to you.
Well, I would just say to Katina, I agree with you. I think, I'm in marketing, and it's all about agility today and always. And I think, the enterprise could certainly, I can speak firsthand, can certainly use a little bit of agility. Actually, a lot of bit of agility. So that's a really good point. I think for me, my advice is like continue to be part of things like Women in Cloud. Like it's been so eye-opening to me personally that, what started as women in technology, like trying to get more women into our big corporate company, is now expanded this year to really talk about access for smaller companies where there's some really amazing and talented women who need that. So I think just, network, knock on a lot of doors, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Do your best work. Those are all things that I think apply to you again. And I think as women, we just want that fair shake, right? And those things ensure that you're going to show up and get that, hopefully get that best fair shake. So my word for 2021, I'm kind of been on a re-kick, resilience. Re is actually the theme for our sales kickoff, which has been also going on this week, big week here. And so my word for 2021 is redefine, because I think we're at the beginning of a completely different era that honestly history will show in 100 years has been probably one of the most profound shifts of everything. In many, many centuries. So redefine is my word.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you're doing, Amy, to help us redefine a better future, and particularly working from the inside out of a very large corporation. Wendy, we'll leave it to you to be our closer here.
Pressure, and I have to say I guess my biggest piece of advice is for those of you that are listening that are thinking about doing business with municipal government and you're thinking about how daunting that can be, just go in and do it. I think once you're in the government system, it has a lot of beautiful sustainability, and I've seen it. I have seen it in my own office that once you do get used to the bureaucracy behind it, it is much easier the second and the third time around. It also diversifies your portfolio. And it is seen as a big body of work because of the immense amount of service that the government does to all these different communities. So I am encouraging everyone that if you haven't been certified as a woman-owned business within your particular states, because I know we have people from around the world and around the nation, please go ahead and begin that now. And anyone who needs advice can feel free to reach out to me. My word for 2021 would probably be life is short. Just go do it. Go do the things you've always said you wanted to do. Life is short.
I love it. So we have be prepared, give us our fair shake, and get her done. I think that's what this is about. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation.